Is there anything that you can do about it right now? If the answer is yes, great, I can get to work. If the answer is no, then I have to figure out a way to put that aside and not worry about that. And again, just focus on what you can do. You're going to have a lot more results when you do that, and you're going to be more fulfilled, and it's just good for your sanity as well.
We RAD Dads, bringing a soft edge to a hard topic. Join us every week as we talk to real people with real stories, from the everyday single parent to family professionals, and find entertainment along the way. Join me, Walter J. Eggers, as I discover and share wisdom. Positive changes start here.
Featured episode. Hello and welcome back again, Rad Dads. Walter here with you, and I'm feeling amazing. If you don't know, We Rad Dads is your resource for single, separated, divorced, and otherwise non-traditional dads. I am happy to have you. Thank you for joining us. To the new listeners, and for everyone who supported us along the way, I cannot thank you enough for making We Rad Dads what it is. You know, I appreciate you listening, and I aim to bring you value and insight, a little bit of wisdom, and entertainment as well. If you find value, insight, wisdom, and or entertainment, I would appreciate you sharing this episode with your friends and other people who need to hear it. This is a featured episode. I'm on a hiatus right now. The season 1 of We Rad Dads has just come to a close, but I'm not going to leave you high and dry. This featured episode is now being rebroadcast from our archives. It's something that I found value in, and I hope you do too. Now, if you don't know, in episode 52, I highlighted the need to take a hiatus, reset, and restructure for We Rad Dads Season 2, which will launch in February 2017. In the meantime, I wanted to bring you something amazing. Speaking of value, if you don't know, quick links are available on the iTunes player. If you tap on the album art, the colorful We Rad Dads banner on the iTunes player, it will uncover a short show notes section. And in those show notes, you'll have several links of things like our resources page, which has been redeveloped and features several podcasts and other resources that you may find helpful, like Amazon affiliates, which I would appreciate you using. Very simple to do, as a matter of fact. If you're going to buy anything on Amazon, go through the quick links there or on our show notes page and any page at www.weraddads.com. And what that does is allow you to make your purchase through Amazon and for We Rad Dads to collect a very small percentage of your purchase, which would normally go to Amazon. This is an excellent way to support our show and We Rad Dads without costing you a penny extra. Also featured in our resources page is our Audible trial. That's right. Go to audibletrial.com/WeRadDad or click on the quick links to get signed up for a free 30-day trial of audible.com. And not only that, you get a free book to boot. A new addition to the quick links is the episode 0. That's the origins of We Rad Dads. If you're new, this is for you. Okay, I didn't mean to rhyme that, but it works. Listen, if you want to know what We Rad Dads is all about and how I started and what we're headed towards, episode 0 is for you. It's a must listen. Go on over to the quick links, click on the link, and get started on that episode too. And now, to draw everything together, I've created a resource and a place for us to be and have conversations that we can't have elsewhere. It's a private Facebook group for We Rad Dads only. Join us. We're having amazing conversations over there, and we're helping guys left and right. The We Rad Dads that have joined are an amazing group of gentlemen, and I'm proud to be there right with you. So come on over and join us on the We Rad Dads Facebook group. During this hiatus, I'm looking forward to creating more resources, like the 7 Essentials download you will find if you go to the We Rad Dads home base at www.weraddads.com. This is a list of 7 essential things you need to do when becoming a single parent. I hope your new year is going great, and I hope to set the stage for a fantastic 2017. It's time to move yourself forward, and I'm right there with you. Now, without further ado, let's get to this week's featured episode. Hello and welcome back, Rad Dads. Walter here with you, and yet again another amazing guest for you. Today I have Ryan Michler of the Order of Man podcast. He's the founder of not only the podcast, theorderofman.com, and the founder of the Iron Council. Ryan has got an amazing story to tell you about his upbringing, his circumstance, and navigating his life to where he is now, and is a shining example for men everywhere. Ryan, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Walter. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here and excited to talk with the dads among the world.
Oh,
we are much needed, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you for being a major part of the men's movement as well. So empowering people, when we feel that we can't win and there's all kinds of obstacles in our path. So thank you for helping us all there.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. I love the conversations we're having in the movement, and it's been exciting. So I'm happy to be among it with you as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll get into some real brief details here. You're a married father of 4 currently.
That's right.
And the recent addition is months old at this point, right?
Weeks old, like
wow.
3 weeks old.
Sincerest congratulations, man. I'm sure that everybody listening understands that nothing is more important and more joyous than family. So congratulations to you and yours.
I agree. Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So you're also a former military member, and I wanted to say initially, thank you for your service. I really appreciate what you and people like you do for our country.
Yeah, thank you. My honor. It is our honor for sure.
Awesome. So, I kind of glanced over some things, I'm sure. So why don't you take a moment, kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we'll just dive into it.
Yeah, you bet. Like you said, I'm the founder of Order of Man, which is a group designed to help men become better leaders in their family, in their communities, in their businesses. And I really saw a need for this because I grew up without a permanent father figure in my life. I had a couple of stepdads jump in and out of my life. My dad left when I was 3 years old. And so I didn't have this example of what it meant to be a man. How do you be a good dad? How do you be a good husband? How do you lead in the community and be a business owner? I didn't have those things. And so I had to look around at outside factors. I was fortunate to have some good teachers and some good coaches, men who helped me understand what it means to be a man. A lot of what I learned about being a guy in general came from sports that I belonged to, and also my time in the military service. And I looked around and I saw, I'm a financial advisor by trade. I've been doing that for the past 9 years. And I looked around and I saw that there was a need for this. There's a lot of guys who grew up in a situation similar to me. And I think there's some confusion on what it means to be a man in this day and age, and how do we be good dads, which ties in perfectly to what you're talking about here on this show. And I didn't want to watch the conversation. I didn't want to sit on the sidelines. I wanted to lead the conversation. And I think anybody who wants to be successful in life has to find a way to get involved and get active and start leading some discussions in the movement. And that's what we've done with Order of Man over the past just over a year now. And it's been a really exciting ride. And I think we've been a catalyst to see some change in a lot of guys' lives. And that's exciting and motivating for me.
Yes, absolutely. And for everyone, the men's movement is real. It's happening. And I'm really glad that there's people who are willing to step up and lead men. It's challenging. It's scary in the fact that, the fear of failure is there. And, you don't want to have that be seen as having a failure in front of other men. I know that that's probably one of my biggest fears as a man is failing in front of and being recognized as someone who has failed in front of other men. I'm sure that's not a very uncommon thing to talk about, but definitely something that we need to recognize. And I think that failure, or maybe not non-accomplishment, I guess we'll call it, but it's a reality. It happens. And
and I know there's a lot of guys that are concerned about that. For me, I quite honestly, when it comes to what I'm doing with some of the projects that I'm working on, that doesn't really cross my mind too much. I've learned in some aspects to embrace the things that scare me and the things that make me fearful. And I haven't really ever thought about failing just because this is a conversation, something I'm passionate about. I can't even imagine or understand what failure would even look like, because all I'm trying to do is have the conversation, and you can't fail at that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it sounds like you and I are fairly parallel in that endeavor as well. So, and I know you said it before, and I'll say this for my crowd, but, I don't intend to be, I'm not an expert at this point. I'm going through this and I'm learning this just like you are. I just want to be the person to bring you, this wisdom and information. So Rad Dads, take that for what it is.
Awesome.
Yes, awesome. So let's get to know you a little bit on a personal level. Pardon me. What is something obscure, maybe a trend or ridiculous, something that used to be a part of that when you were growing up, was awesome, right? And now it is not so much. You kind of look back and go, oof.
Something that growing up, let's see. As I was growing up, I remember grunge was the big thing. That was the trend. You had Kurt Cobain, you had Eddie Vedder with Pearl Jam, and so I was into the grunge scene. And looking back on it now, it's really interesting because I'm actually the exact opposite of that, minus the beard. I guess the beard can be a little wild at times, but I'm a pretty disciplined, pretty regimented. I have systems for just about everything that I do. So I can't imagine why that was so appealing to me at the time. But grunge was the thing that I was involved with. That influenced a lot of my decisions for good and bad when I was a child.
Right. Yeah. And we'll get into your story a little bit, but I think I could see why that would be appealing. I remember that too. That was the thing. And I guess I didn't understand why it was the thing, but I knew it was the thing back at that time.
I think it was cool just to not care. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like just carefree and just, hey, show up who you are, which actually is surprising. There's a lot of that kind of that reinsurgence of that in the fact that, a lot of guys are saying, well, don't care about what other people think, just be yourself. And it's not necessarily grunge. It's just being comfortable with yourself. So I guess there is an element of that is actually a good thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Couldn't agree with that more. Be yourself and do you, there should be a lot more of that.
I agree.
And that's the only way to really find happiness throughout your life. So cool. How about a stupid movie? Do you have a favorite stupid go-to movie that you subscribe to?
Oh, let's see. A stupid movie. I don't watch a ton of shows. I guess like the only stupid movies that I really remember, maybe even as a child just growing up, was like Dumb and Dumber. That was a big movie.
Yeah.
Joe Dirt, those kind of things were funny to me.
I'm so happy you brought that one up.
Yeah. But outside of that, like I said, I don't want to watch a whole lot of movies now. So right. I don't, I guess not now, but looking back, those were some movies that, I could sit here and I could probably quote the entire movie for you, but we can do that on another show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm the same boat, the time for that sort of thing is kind of over and done with, but, yes, so much of a classic. Dear Tay.
Yes, that's right. Joe Dierte. That's right.
So, let me see. Tell us something about you that, maybe very few people or nobody would know about you.
That's a good, I try to be an open book. I really do. In fact, I made a Facebook post the other day about some of the things that I like. One of the things I put on there is that I actually like painting those miniature, toll house paint houses, the little villages for Christmas. I like painting those.
Interesting.
That's weird. Yeah, really strange, I know, but my wife and I will sit down and we'll turn on a show and we'll paint those. That's one thing. I really like Martha Stewart magazine. For a guy that runs a blog called Order of Man, for me to like Martha Stewart magazine. But I really enjoy being outside working on, hobbies and building stuff and in the garden. We enjoy that as a family. And so we get some good ideas there. I guess that's probably a couple things people don't know about me up until this point.
Yeah, definitely surprising. But I mean, everyone's got their different sides and avenues. And so,
that's right.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's pretty cool, actually. Martha Stewart magazine. So what about, is it like the recipes or the projects? What is it?
It's the projects and so I like that. And there's another magazine. I think it's called Southwest Living, I think is what it's called. And they just have a ton of different projects around the house, which I enjoy doing. I like working on the house, fixing projects, doing some things up. And then, their yard projects that they have, how they manage their garden and what the garden actually looks like. Those are things that we actually enjoy doing as a family. Between my wife and kids, we'll be outside and we'll do those things together. And so we get some good inspirations and ideas from those couple of magazines.
Yeah. Big on yards and outside stuff.
I love
projects
it, yeah.
Myself. I just, I need to be tactile and use my hands.
That's right. Yep. I agree.
Awesome. So, okay, words of motivation. Here on Rad Dads, I have this quote, and it's from Charles Swindoll. It says, "Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it." How does that resonate with you and your life?
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. I mean, there's a lot of things outside of our control in life. I mean, if we were to look at my background, I grew up, like I said, without a permanent father figure. And I know there's some guys listening to this that are maybe raising their children as single fathers. And so there's some things that are sometimes outside of our circumstances that we can't control, but we can always control how we react to it. And I think the more that we manage and worry about the things that we can control and less about the things that we can't, I think we're just going to be a lot more satisfied, a lot more fulfilled. One of the things my wife always says, because I have a tendency to get stressed out at times, is she'll say to me, if there's a certain situation that we're going through, she'll say, is there anything that you can do about it right now? If the answer is yes, great, I can get to work. If the answer is no, then I have to figure out a way to put that aside and not worry about that. And again, just focus on what you can do. You're going to have a lot more results when you do that, and you're going to be more fulfilled, and it's just good for your sanity as well.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent words right there. Is there anything you can do about it right now? And then it's either the yay, I'm going to take action, or nay, I'm just going to, persevere. And maybe at some interval in the future, maybe you can do something about it or what have you. But, put that out of your mind. Ruminating on that fear or that situation is just not productive for anyone. And it ends up stressing you out further.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And that's what it's all about. I mean, whether you're a father or a business owner, both, community leader, spiritual leader, it's about the effectiveness and efficiency of what it is you're actually doing. And if you start focusing on things you can't control, you lose a lot of that effectiveness, and you waste a lot of time and energy and resources, money and other people's money. And it's just not a good thing. So focus on what you can control. Yeah.
And you can't show up well for others. I mean, including your family. And that's usually who takes the brunt of it at that point as well.
Of course.
And I've been there. I think all of the rad dads, I think all men have been there, especially to my son. And that's the person I'm most accountable to and for. But, and it crushes me every time I have a recent episode where, I was failing in certain areas and I could only do so much about it, but I'm frustrated about it. I got mad. I got mad for almost no reason. And you regret it afterwards, and you got to learn that lesson and move on. So, I still do it, but, recognize it. Recognition is a huge thing. And this speaks to one of your big pillars here. And I'm probably just mashing that to pieces, but self-mastery, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go through what are these, 8 pillars that you've created through Order of Man?
Yeah, so the idea is just to make this a little bit more simplified. I mean, there's so much information about what it means to be a man and how a man acts and how a man behaves and what he does and what our responsibilities are. But I think there's a few key areas that if we focus on in our lives, then that's naturally going to help us be more well-rounded. Mm-hmm. It's going to help us have more fulfillment. It's going to help us to be better fathers and better husbands, better business owners. And what's interesting about this is when you work on one of these skills, you're automatically going to improve the other skills, because the skills necessary to achieve self-mastery tie in perfectly to getting in better shape, or tie in perfectly to being the best father that you can be, or they tie in perfectly to building more wealth and building the business that you're trying to build. So we really narrowed it down to these 8 key skill sets, and I think it's helped a lot of guys just have a little bit more of a targeted focus on what they should be spending their time worrying about that will produce and create maximum results. It's really easy for us to get distracted with everything the world has for us and shows us and tells us we need to watch and consume and participate in. But when we focus on these few key areas, everything's going to naturally improve.
Awesome. Yeah. Can you go over some of those real quick?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can run through them really quick. Yeah. Self-mastery, obviously, is one that you mentioned. Relationships, which is the reason that we're connected today, but it goes above and beyond business relationships. It's relationships with your children. It's relationships with your significant other or in the community. Relationships are huge. And I actually put that one first. These aren't in any order, but that one I always put first because I don't think anything can happen without developing and building relationships in your life.
Completely.
No man is an island.
Yes, completely agree.
The next one we talk about a lot is intellect, which is, I mean, the guys listening to this show, this will tie in perfectly. They're out for knowledge. They're out trying to get new information and consume new information. There's this idea, I think, that's running around in society that says, you need to go get your secondary degree. And then once you have done that, you go out into the world and then you just work and you apply that information. And the reality is that you should always be learning. There's all kinds of new information and we have access to it. What's really cool about this is if I could give you a book suggestion, you could literally be reading that book in the next 60 seconds. And so we have an ability to tap into the minds of the most brilliant men and women on the planet and all of these ideas and concepts and knowledge, and we're just not using it to its full potential. So we talk a lot about intellect.
Yes.
The next one we talk about is leadership. So at some point, and this is huge for men, I mean, I talk about 3 pillars, 3 foundational responsibilities that we have as men, and leadership, I call it preside, but leadership is one of the primary responsibilities of a man. It's the reason that we're put on this planet is to lead. And every single one of us is going to be called upon as a leader at some point. Leader in our families, leader in our businesses, leader in our community, and our ability to lead effectively and to help build up other leaders. We don't want followers, we want other leaders, is going to spell the difference between success or failure in the things that we're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about that. The next one's kind of fun, manly know-how, manly skills. I talk a lot about that. I think we talked about this just a second ago, where it's, working with your hands, being productive, right? Having that knowledge. And it could be things around the house like plumbing and basic electrical and knowing how to swing a hammer and use a set of tools, having a set of tools. All of these things are important. Learning how to throw a baseball, work on the vehicles. Not that you have to do all this stuff, but I think when you use your hands and you use your mind, you start creating new patterns in your mind that will help you solve other problems. But then it's also about being useful. We have natural disasters, we have active shooter type situations, we have things like that where the world can be maybe a dangerous and scary place. And as men, it's our responsibility to meet those obstacles head on. That's our responsibility. That's the reason that we're built the way we're built. It's the reason our minds work the way they work, is so that we can address those issues, we can address those concerns. And so this is self-defense, this is preparing for natural disasters and emergencies. These are all of the things that I think also help men be great leaders.
Yes, absolutely. And the tactile skills, those sort of things, you get to see the physical result of those things. And there's something really satisfying about that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. When I was out of college, I did some construction. I was doing some heating and air. I did some electrical. I did some construction. I did some landscaping. All of those very physical type jobs, which I haven't done probably now for at least 10 years, 12, 13 years, somewhere in there. And as much as I like what I'm doing now, there's elements of that I miss. And the elements are that I get to sweat and work out and exercise, and then I get to build something. I think that's ingrained to every man, is that we can have this idea or this concept in our mind, and then we can put our hands to work and use our muscles and sweat and blood and create the thing that was in our mind. Like, to me, that's such a fascinating, exciting opportunity that we can actually do that. And I think a lot of guys don't do that because we go to work or we get into our family lives and we just get so consumed with our day-to-day activities that we forget that, we need to exercise this mind of ours, and we need to exercise our physical muscles.
Yes.
These are all things that are very important.
Oh man, couldn't agree more. I love breaking a sweat, working, doing something. I have to do it.
Yes.
Awesome.
The next one we talk about wealth. I told you I'm a financial advisor, so having the right mindset, building wealth, understanding how money works, why it's important, why you need to build it, how it's going to help you empower not only your life, but the lives of those you love. So we talk a ton about that. We talk about health. 3 years ago, I was in a bad position. I was 50 pounds overweight. I would come home. My boys would say, Dad, let's go jump on the trampoline. And I remember a time where I literally had to look them in the eye and say, I'm sorry, boys, I can't. I literally could not. I was exhausted. I was tired. I didn't have any energy after coming home from work. And that was a turning point for me. I said, I got to do something about this. I cannot be fully present as a man. I cannot be fully present as a father. I cannot be fully present as a husband. I cannot be fully present as a entrepreneur unless I get this health component in check. I've lost 50 pounds. I compete in Spartan races. And as exciting and fun as that is, I enjoy that. We talk about sweating and using our muscles. That's fun. But the other side of it is that I'm so much more productive in every other area of my life. So health is a huge component of being a man.
Nice.
And
it is, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think we've all been there where we're sitting on the couch looking at our kids going, I just don't have the energy. I just can't, right now. And it crushes me to have to say that.
I know, it's brutal. It's not the reason that we were, called to be our kids' parents. We need to be present for them emotionally, physically, mentally present and available. Unless we have our health in check, we can't do that to the full degree.
Nice. Yes.
We talked about self-mastery. I don't think we necessarily got into it too in depth, but it's basically, I call it the natural man. And the natural man tends to be a little bit lazy, and he wants things now, and he's impatient. And self-mastery is hard because it's different. Walter, what you need to work on is different than what I need to work on. So that's exactly what I'm talking about here. Is it pridefulness? Is it stubbornness? Is it an ego? What is it? And those are the things that you individually need to overcome in order to accomplish big things in your life. And that's what self-mastery is all about.
Nice. Yes.
And then the last one we talk about is style. And originally I put style in fashion, but I just put style now because it's not just about the clothes that we wear, which is kind of a funny concept that manly men worry about the clothes they wear. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the way that you show up in the world. How present are you emotionally? How present are you mentally? How present are you physically? Like, we've all seen that guy who's walked into a room, and without even looking at him, we just can feel that this guy has something special. There's something unique. Like he has it figured out. He's got that X factor. And that's what style is. How do you show up in the world? Are you present? Are you available? Are you professional? Do you care about other people? How do you talk? What's your vocabulary like? How do you walk? Do you have confidence? These are all things that style is a big component of making sure that you're accomplishing big things in your life.
It's awesome. You packaged what it is to be a man in 8 succinct points, and I'm sure there's just an unending amount of information on each of those.
Of course.
So this is just the brief overall. So Rad Dads, I hope you're taking notes, because we just had it laid out in front of us. Ryan Michler of Order of Man just laid down the hammer, so to speak.
That's right.
And I want to touch on something that you said, being able to have information at any point in our lives. We live in a time where you have the most powerful device known to man in your pocket at any given moment.
Sure.
Leverage it. Leverage that tool. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it could be your downfall. You could fall down the rabbit hole in it, or you could use it to really just leverage your rise. Start to learn things. And, with that, I'm going to say, he mentioned a book specifically. Right now, We Rad Dads is offering an Audible free trial for 30 days. Free 30-day trial. Doesn't cost you a penny. And you get an extra book on top of that. So go to the webpage, come over to weraddads.com, or go type in www.audible.com, audibletrial.com, that is. Here I go too fast talking, /WeRadDads. If that's too difficult for you, as it is me, just go over to the show notes page and it'll be a link for you. Hey, Rad Dads, I want to take a very quick moment and let you know that I have a free 7-step guide for the newly single parent over on our website at www.weraddads.com. Capitalize on the wisdom that I've gained through this podcast and my own personal experiences. Go on over to any one of our show notes or other pages. This offer will pop up automatically. All you need to do is enter your name and email address, and this guide will be delivered directly to your email inbox. Go over there right now, today. Get your free 7-step guide now. Yours, absolutely free. So awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for laying that out for us. And I want to get into your circumstance, your bomb. As everyone knows, the bomb crater is when your life basically explodes and you kind of find yourself in this new environment. You're in a hole and, all of a sudden you kind of wake up and go, wait a second, I'm on rock bottom and I can't see where I'm at and it's smoky. My vision's blurred and I can see the hole I'm in and the sky above me. So tell us about a circumstance in your life where you found yourself in your bomb crater and tell us how you're able to extricate yourself.
Yeah. The biggest wake-up call for me is when my first son was 1 year old. I didn't have this thing figured out. I told you that. I grew up without a father in my home. And looking back on it now, when my first son was born, that showed. I did not have this figured out. I wasn't good to my wife. I wasn't treating her the way she needed to be treated. I wasn't a good father to my son at the time. And what ended up happening is my wife and I got into an argument one night, and in that argument we decided that maybe this isn't best, like we shouldn't be married. And I remember having that conversation. I don't remember what we were arguing about, but the next morning I remember her leaving, and for a long time I was really, really bitter with her. How could she do this to me? Why wasn't she loyal? Why wasn't she being doing the things that I thought a good wife should do? How could she take my son away from me? All of those things that run through my head. And I don't know why this changed, but that was probably the crater that you're talking about, that I hit rock bottom. And I realized that, you know what? Maybe it's not her. Maybe I'm the one who isn't doing what I need to be doing as a husband. Maybe I'm the one who needs to change. And so I started to take a real hard look about who I needed to be as a man. Like what makes a good dad? What makes a good husband? And I started to surround myself with great men. I started to read great books, and I really went to work on me at that point in my life. I didn't focus heavily on her. I didn't focus heavily on my son. I really went to work on me. And what was really interesting when I did that, and I became aware of who I was and who I wanted to be, and did things about getting myself into a situation that I needed to be in, she started to respond to that. And we were separated for 3 or 4 months. And I was on a trip, and I remember talking with her. I either called her or she called me, and she said she wanted to come back home. And she did. And I don't have it all figured out. Just like you said, there's things where I fall and I trip. And But the reason I tell you that is because in June, we will have been married this year for 12 years. We've got 4 kids. Our marriage isn't perfect. We get in arguments. I say mean things. She says mean things at times. But there's a lot more awareness of who I am and who I need to be. And I'm a lot more quick to apologize. I'm a lot more quick to make it right. And that's really, I think, the catalyst, the starting point, the genesis, if you will, of Order of Man and me going on this path for myself.
Yeah, so much right there. You know, it sounded like you were on the verge of losing, you know, the vision of a family that we all kind of had for ourselves. And
of course, yeah.
There's so much right there. I mean, you decided to make these changes. Where was that aha moment? Where was that? How did I get here? Hard look at yourself pivot. What was there a certain circumstance or was it over a duration?
You know, I just think it was over time in the process of our separation. I was doing everything that I could to win her back, and I focused so much attention on her, almost to the point of a fault. And it wasn't working. She wasn't responding. And I just thought to myself, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to make this work? I didn't want my son to grow up with a dad like I had. I didn't want to be divorced. I didn't want that stuff. And so I was willing to try anything. And I said, well, okay, I can't control her. And this is what we talked about earlier, the things that we can and cannot control. And I realized that my wife and her behavior or even her love is something I can't control. But the one thing I can is me. So let's work on me. And I started to get back in better shape. And like I said, read those books, surround myself with the right people. And I just looked around and I said, okay, let me find somebody who has what I want. And I would see guys who are great husbands, and I would see guys who are great fathers, and I would see guys who are great business owners. And I tried to learn from them as much as I could, directly and indirectly. What were they doing in their life that worked, that I could extract and then implement in my life? And those are the things that I started to do. And those men, I'll tell you, the underlying theme with those men is they take care of themselves first. I know that sounds selfish. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but when we as men take care of ourselves first, we can more fully show up in the world for those that matter. The analogy I always use is the airplane. If the oxygen masks come down, what do they tell you to do? Well, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first.
Right.
Because if you're dead, you're not going to be able to save anybody else. So worry about yourself first. Get yourself right, your mind and your emotions and your body, so that you can be fully present for the people you care about in your life.
Wow. There's some nuggets right there, Rad Dads. Again, you just full of amazing information. And well, first of all, thanks for making that realization for yourself, because if that hadn't happened, Order Man wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't be here talking to us right now. You know, you would be an entirely different person. So for whatever reason that occurred, man, I'm extremely thankful to have that for your life and for everyone who you're able to influence at this point.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's been a good ride, and I'm glad. I mean, obviously I'm glad for me, but I'm glad for everybody else that I've been able to figure out some of these things and be able to share some of the lessons I've learned.
Yeah. Awesome. It sounds like the tribe that you discovered really helped you out in that. And, you know, we'll go back to that Jim Rohn quote. You know, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And you decided to make that change and go through with changing yourself and changing your atmosphere as well. And it sounds like that's paid enormous dividends.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
So in that phase, was there someone you would lean on as a rock? Was there one of your go-to people, guys, or otherwise? Was there someone in particular that you would lean on?
You know, that's a really good question. There's never been a point in my life, and this is kind of interesting, where I've had very deep connections. You don't have a lot of deep connections with people. My mom is obviously one of them, my wife now, and my children now. But through that time, it really wasn't a deep connection for me. I mean, that might stem, if we were to go back, you know, my lack of a father figure in my life. I don't know where that comes from. That's beside the point. I think here's where we take a misstep. Sometimes we hear this thing of that you have to have a mentor. You have to work closely with somebody and be mentored by somebody, which is true. I think there's value in that. There definitely is. But we don't always need to have it directly, as long as we're aware and we're consciously looking, whether that's reading somebody's book, whether that's listening to somebody's podcast, whether that's talking with them as often as you can. do it. And there's information and there's truths everywhere. So we don't need necessarily to hone in on one specific area. There's so much broad information that can serve across different parts of our lives. So to answer your question, the short version is no, there wasn't anybody besides my mother who was like a deep connection. I just looked around at the masses and gathered what I could from the sources I had.
Awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned you would read also. Started picking up books like, self-help books. What are we talking about? Was there like a title, one that really grabbed you? What was that pivot book where you read it and you're like, this is what I need?
Yeah. I don't think life happens like that. Like, I don't think there's ever I know we have these big shocking moments at times in our lives, but I think we build up to those things. Mm-hmm. And so was there a specific book that jumps out at me now? No, not looking back. There was a lot of books that I read. I was looking through my library earlier this morning. I've got hundreds upon hundreds of books, which I was never a reader. I am now. A couple of books that I've read recently that have really stood out to me is number one, Resilience, which is a great book. Eric Greitens, he's a Navy SEAL, talks about it's basically the format is he's sending letters to a friend that he was in the SEALs with in how to transition back into civilian life. So Resilience is a great book. The other one that I have just loved about leadership and taking ownership of your life is Extreme Ownership. This is by another Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, and that is probably one of the best books I've ever read on the topic of leadership and owning your life. In fact, awesome. We had him on the show. I just interviewed him last week. We're going to be releasing that episode, and I'm just a phenomenal man. So
yeah, that's great to have those kind of influences and have connection with those people. That I can already tell that's probably an amazing interview. I'm going to have to go over and listen to that myself. Rad Dads, I'm going to try this one more time. It's audibletrial.com/WeRadDads. There it is. I got it out. And these are two really awesome examples of books you can go and check out. So I'll leave that alone. But Ryan, thank you for sharing those. I know that you have a ton of different books. I know I was on the Facebook group and you are constantly listing different books that are influential. And so I appreciate you sharing the wealth there. I'm a big believer in books, but I don't always have time to read them. And that's the biggest problem.
Learn to speed read. That's what I've done is I've developed keys to be able to speed read, but Audible, you talk about that. Listening to an audiobook is good as well. If you have time in your commute or whatever it may be, that's a great resource to be able to catch those things in between trips or appointments, wherever it may be. And the guys listening to this obviously like audio because they wouldn't be listening to this podcast if they didn't. So
of course. Yeah. Well, Ryan, I hope that, we're not projecting that we're rushed here, but I understand that, we do have a little bit of a time limitation. So I'm going to try and bust through as much of the important things as possible here real quick. What I want to know is, on a personal level, what's your best dad skill or superpower?
My best dad skill or superpower. That's a good question. I think the biggest skill that I have and something that I've been very conscious about working on is allowing my children to lead. I think we as dads too often think that we're the leader and therefore what we say goes. And to a degree, that's true. There's a lot of situations financially, for example, keeping our children safe is another example where that applies. But there's also a lot of situations where you need to get out of your kid's way and you need to let your child lead. Follow your child. Let him or her understand what it's like to lead, where they maybe misstep. Don't help your children as often as you probably do at this point and let them experience some things inside a controlled environment so that they then grow up with the skills to lead their families and their businesses and their communities.
Awesome. Yes, well said. And by the way, I wanted to make a remark because it struck me really profoundly in this way. One of your several videos that you have on the Facebook group as well, you talked about your experience as a coach and allowing your kids to experience the full array of the game, including winning and losing, and how that can prepare or cripple kids depending on whether or not you allow them to experience that.
Yeah. I think too often we bubble wrap our children and then try to keep them out of harm's way. And there's things that we should.
Yes.
When it comes to their physical safety, yes, That's our job as parents to protect. I told you that to protect them, right?
Yeah.
But to soften their experience with emotions, to soften their experience with mental toughness and resiliency and experiencing trials and setbacks and heartaches, that to me is doing your child a disservice. It's nice that your child has this perfect upbringing, but what happens when they're 18 years old and they leave and you're not there? Then they crumble. I've seen kids 18 years old who have literally said to me that they're worried about leaving because they've never been out on their own. And to me, I say that's the fault of a parent. At 18 years old, I left my house the day after I graduated high school. To me, that's not that I wanted to get out of there, but that's a testament to my mom who had prepared me to go out onto my own and do the things that I wanted to do in my life for myself. That's our responsibility.
Yes. Well said. Prepare your kids, Rad Dads. Prepare them, arm them with knowledge and understanding and experiences in a safe way for them to handle the world. That's your job. That's it right there. Oh man, that's great. That's an excellent, superpower there. Do you have anything that's a weakness that you're not super powered on, and how do you manage or mitigate that?
Oh yeah, no, patience. Patience is my big thing. I'm a pretty black and white guy. There's not a lot of gray area. It's like, hey, you do this or you do that, and it's either yes or no. You're going to do it or you're not. There's not a whole lot of excuses. Like, this is the way things are. And so when I see my children not taking those lessons or that black and white approach and trying to muddy the waters or not do what they're supposed to be doing, that's really frustrating for me.
Yeah.
And that gets on my nerves. The way that I try to mitigate that is, again, understanding that the next 18 years of their life is a training stage. Like, they don't have to have it figured out today. I probably have to have it figured out a little more than they do because the responsibilities I carry are a lot more meaningful, right?
Right.
But they don't. And so if I can understand that, hey, they're learning. They don't have to have it figured out. This is how they figure it out. This is how they become decisive. This is how they learn how to lead. Though when I have those type of thoughts, it helps me remember it. You know what? Your kids are 8, 5, 2, and 3 weeks old now. They're young. Let them develop into the way that maybe you see them developing into.
Yeah. Do you feel a lot more pressure with your oldest? Because it seems like, I would think, and I'm not a parent of multiple kids at this point, but it seems like he's the leader of your clan of this. He's the subordinate leader, really.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something I thought about. I'm glad you brought this up because I've thought about this even over the past couple of weeks, that sometimes I feel like maybe I'm a little too hard on him. And I'm a little hard on him because I expect big things of him. He is the big brother. He is a lot like me. I look at him and I see this little mini me running around, and I think I could see all the potential he has, and I want him to fully realize it. And so at times I come across tough, and I try to be very careful of that because I want to empower him. I don't want to crush him. I want him to be able to recognize that he has everything that he needs within himself, and he can accomplish big things. And I don't think a parent can do that by squashing kids' dreams, by being too hard on your kids and not letting them experience their childhood. Yeah, completely agree. It's good intel, really. I've been exposed to that. I don't know how it worked with my older brother and that dynamic, but that was a whole different several generations of parenting ago. And I think as a society, we've kind of come a long way. It's both good and bad. And sure. I think, of course, the response to that is podcasts like ours, both of ours, and where we're trying to, help people out and get people to, parents, men to, understand their roles, because those lines have been really blurred. Yeah. Awesome. I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Name a cornerstone trait that you're trying to instill in your children, and why? Why is that important? Oh, I go back to leadership. I mean, that's the most important thing. Yeah. If you can lead correctly, then you can do anything. I mean, if you know how to lead yourself, if you know how to lead your family, you know how to lead a team, then you can do anything. And all of the traits required to be a leader are traits that, again, transition perfectly into other areas of life. So leadership is the most important thing I can instill in my children.
Okay. Yeah. And I completely agree with that. That is, what speaking of your kids, what's a bucket list item that you would have for your children? Something that you would participate in together, your family, I guess, in this case.
Yeah. That's, so my son, my oldest, just turned 8. And I thought, kids don't have any rites of passages anymore.
Yes.
Like they don't know when they're young men. They don't know when they're men. They don't have this stuff. And so I thought, well, how can I fix this? How can I do this for my kids? And so I just took my son on a rite of passage. And what we did is we planned a camp out where he had to complete certain tasks. So he had to start his fire. He had to get the camp set up. He had to do the packing list, everything that would go into planning a camp out. He planned it all. And then we went up and we did this camp out, and through the certain trials and little obstacles and challenges like setting up the fire, we went on a hike, some of those things, he was able to earn his first rifle. So I bought him a 22 little single shot bolt action rifle that he earned, and he earned his first knife. And I talked to him about the 3 P's of masculinity, which we haven't got in here, but it's protect, provide, and preside. And I talked to him about that, and I gave him these little mini figurines, one of a fully grown lion and one of a lion cub. And I talked about how a boy becomes a king, becomes a lion, a male, when he understands and implements those 3 P's in his life. So that rite of passage was such a memorable experience for me and a memorable experience for him. And I plan on doing it with all my boys, and I'm going to incorporate something for my daughter as well. That to me is just, I loved it. And, it was cool.
That's a really key experience. I think that has been completely lost in our culture. And I think that we as parents need to do that, without fail for every child. And I think that, I don't know. Have you seen a response to that?
With my son?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he walks around and he'll even tell me, and he's told me this multiple times. In fact, I did a video on the 3 P's, the same 3 P's that I had a conversation with him about on our rite of passage. And he says, Dad, you need to do a video about that. You need to do a post about that. And he actually did a presentation at school, and he didn't know what he was going to talk about. And he talked about that. So the things that we teach our children are resonating. They're listening, and they're watching us, and they're using us as an example of the way that they should be. So absolutely, 100%.
Yes. The good and the bad.
That's true. Yeah. And I can even go back now into a situation. Maybe he isn't exactly truthful in a situation. Maybe he does something he shouldn't. I can go back to that lesson and I can say, all right, son, let's talk about this. We've talked about presiding, and you understand that to be leadership. Can you be a great leader if people don't trust you? And so we can fall back on that now, and he fully understands the lessons we're trying to teach.
Oh man, there's so much awesome here. I'm so charged up, but I know we're bumping up against time here. And again, I respect your time. In closing, do you have any words of recommendation or wisdom for the rad dads out there, or men in general at this point?
The biggest thing I think that a father can do is to get involved. Just be involved, right? Just be present. And I'm not talking about physically. It's easy for a man to be around physically. That takes no effort whatsoever. I'm talking about emotionally. I'm talking about mentally. Just being there and being involved, coaching your kids' teams, going to their piano recitals, doing all the stuff that maybe you wouldn't really want to do, and you can think of 1,000 other things. But this is important. Just be involved as often and as much as you can. I promise you, it's going to serve your kids well, and it's going to serve you well. You're going to be more fulfilled if you are willing to serve them.
Absolutely. And you're talking about the difference between being a father and being a dad.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Well, Ryan, I want to open it up to you. If there's anything that, maybe we didn't discuss or that you want to touch on, the floor is yours. It's all about you right now. So take advantage.
Okay. So let's see. What would I want to address and cover? I think, one thing that we didn't talk maybe a whole lot about is this idea of taking action. I talk with a lot of guys on a daily basis that have concerns about what they're doing. Like, how do I be a good dad, or how do I be a good husband, or how do I lead or start this business? And to me, it's all about taking action before you're ready. Just take action. Everybody out there, I've never met a man or a woman who didn't have an idea for the future or what the future looks like for them. But what separates the people who are successful from the ones who aren't are the ones who actually act. So it's really easy for thousands of men to listen to the We Rad Dad podcast. But how many of us are actually going to implement what we learned today and what we've learned over the past, 20 episodes, Walter, you said?
Yeah, right about 20.
And that's my challenge to everybody who's listening, is that if there's something you can take away from this podcast or the other 19 that Walter's recorded it up to this point, don't sit on that information. It's useless unless you act upon it. So taking action is huge for me.
Well said yet again. And I couldn't agree more. There would be no podcast if it weren't for the actions of certain men or people in this case. There would be no Order of Man. There would be no Iron Council. There would be no We Rad Dads. So take the action. And I can guarantee you that everyone involved in each of those things probably wasn't as prepared as they could have been. But take action and course correct along the way.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. And, well, that's great. I did mention the Iron Council. I don't know if we had brought that up before. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, you bet. So the Iron Council, so I've got a closed Facebook group for Order of Man, and we've got, I think, 31 or 3,200 men in there right now having some great conversations. But there's always a sliver of a fraction of a percent of men who want to take it above and beyond, who are wanting to take action, wanting to do something more. So what we did is we created an elite mastermind group called the Iron Council. So we get together online every single week. We talk about the 8 key skill sets and a lot more. We have assignments that we do. We have daily challenges. But the idea is to take, I think there's 73, 74 of us in the group right now, is to push each other, to test each other, to question each other, to debate, not argue with, but debate, to question and to stretch each other and push each other outside of the comfort zone. And so that's what the Iron Council is all about. And the guys in there are just seeing some amazing results with the relationships with their wives and the relationships with their kids and their businesses, and they're making more money and they're getting in better health because they have this accountability and people to bounce ideas off of. So so Iron Council is our elite mastermind group.
Nice. Yeah. And, you can find all this stuff, either through the Facebook group or, orderofman.com. Did I leave any of those channels out there?
No, that's perfect. Yeah. Orderman.com. The Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/orderofman. Between those two resources, you'll find out everything you need to know about what we're doing.
Awesome. And how do we get in touch with you?
Same way. If you jump on there, I'm pretty active on Facebook. So if you join the Facebook group or want to shoot me a message on Facebook, that's one way to do it. If you want to shoot me an email, ryan@orderofman.com, that's another way to do it. And I'm available. So I'd love to hear from anybody who has any questions or needs any insight.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. And we really appreciate your time, to join We Rad Dads here today, to kind of talk about these things. And there's so much more I really wanted to talk about, but hey, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to discuss what we did. So thanks for coming on the program today. And, keep in touch with us. I'm sure we can cross promote and help each other out in any way possible. Rad Dads, get out there, check it out. Check out Order of Man podcast. Check out the orderman.com. And if Iron Council suits you, definitely dive into that. Take action.
Yes. Walter, I appreciate you. I appreciate your work, man. This is much needed. We guys and fathers really need some guidance, really need some direction. And I am excited about the work you're doing. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, I'm equally excited about what you're able to accomplish and moving forward. So, can't appreciate that enough. And, much respect, sir. So have a great day. Rad Dads out there, take action. In the words of Ryan Michler, take action. Well, that's it for this episode of We Rad Dads. I sincerely thank you for joining us. Don't forget to look us up at www.weraddads.com. There you can find links to our Facebook page and Twitter account. Got a question or comment? It may be featured. Email me, walter@weraddads.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, stay up, stay connected, and stay rad, dads.